There is a kind of pain that moves quietly through the body, not the sharp, visible kind that draws tears or trembling, but something softer, more persistent, like fog pressing against the edges of your lungs. It never screams. It hums. It hides in the way you try a little too hard, in the way your laughter lingers a second too long, like a desperate flare sent into the night, hoping someone will notice. It hides in the late hours when the world has gone to sleep and you lie awake, replaying conversations in the hollow theater of your mind, wondering if one misplaced word was what made them turn away. It is the ache of wanting to be wanted, that small sacred hunger that begins before memory, before language itself. Because before we understood love, we breathed it. We absorbed it like sunlight, in the tone of our mother's voice, in the weight of a father's gaze, when we offered something made by our small hands. We did not yet know what attention meant, but our bodies knew how it felt to vanish. The story of most lives begins there, not in the heartbreaks of adulthood, but in those silent, unrecorded moments when a child first realizes that love somehow must be earned. And so we begin the performance. Maybe you were the one who learned early how to earn it, the polite child, the bright one, the peacemaker. You learned to smooth the air, to hold your breath when tempers rose, to be good. You didn't just want to be loved, you needed to deserve it. Somewhere in that subtle transaction, something ancient shifted inside you. Love became conditional, attention became oxygen. You began to measure your worth not by your own pulse, but by the reflection in someone else's eyes. And even when you grew, when the years added height and language and reason, that old circuitry stayed, glowing faintly beneath the surface like a forgotten constellation. You can still see it in the adults we become, in the way we chase validation. Still children at heart, holding up our drawings to the world, asking, "Do you like it? Do you like me?" Different setting, same question. The need to be wanted has never been weakness. It is a memory of survival. Once belonging meant safety, rejection meant exile, and our nervous systems, loyal to their origin, never forgot. To be ignored still feels like danger. To be unseen still burns in the brain as pain, literal pain. The scans confirm what the poets already knew. A wounded heart and a bruised body speak in the same language. But somewhere along our evolution, survival became theater. We began to trade authenticity for acceptance, selfhood for belonging. We learned the choreography of pleasing, how to smile just right, how to agree without conviction, how to laugh at jokes that hollow out the soul. We called it kindness. We called it maturity. We called it being easy to love. But underneath, it was the child whispering through the years, "If I make them happy, maybe they'll stay." Time teaches us how to disguise that voice. We call it ambition. We call it service. We call it dependability. Yet beneath every act of proving, there is still that small hand reaching out for approval. There comes a moment, quiet, devastating, when you realize you've spent your life performing for love. You look back and see the countless times you tried to fix yourself just to be chosen. You remember the silence after a message sent too honestly. You recall the crowd where you smiled through invisibility. And that's when it begins to dawn that you've been chasing mirrors, not connection. That being wanted and being known are not the same thing. Most of us settle for the first because it's easier to earn. We mistake the warmth of attention for the safety of love. We think if someone wants us, they see us, But often they only see the version of us that soothes them, reflects them, completes their unfinished narrative. You become their mirror, and for a while it feels like sunlight, until you realize they never really saw your face, only their own desire, refracted through you. And you loved them for it, didn't you? Because you needed to be needed too. It's no one's fault. It's the human inheritance, this hunger to matter, to be chosen, to be enough. Some of us chase it through touch, others through applause, through kindness, through achievement. But beneath every pursuit lies the same fragile wish: to hear someone say, "You already matter." Most of us never heard that. Not from our parents, not from our teachers, not from the world. So we built entire lives trying to earn what should have been unconditional. You can see it in the smallest rituals, the way your mood rises and falls with someone's reply, the way silence feels like punishment, the way a single compliment can lift the entire weight of a day. It's not sensitivity, it's memory. The body remembering that once approval meant safety and rejection meant the cold. So you learned to read faces like sacred texts, tone, timing, temperature. You mastered the unspoken art of survival. You learned when to speak, when to dim yourself, when to disappear. They call it attachment conditioning. But it's more than psychology. It's the choreography of the soul. If you had to earn love as a child, you will keep earning it long after the test has ended. You will find yourself overworking, overgiving, over-apologizing, until there's nothing left but the echo of effort. You will confuse attention for affection, applause for intimacy. You'll call exhaustion devotion. You'll call depletion care. But what you really want, what all of us want, is not fame, not validation, not even love as the world defines it. You want to be held without earning it. You want the stillness of being known and kept. You want the ancient peace of unconditional belonging. The tragedy is that once you start seeking that feeling outside yourself, you lose control of it. Your peace becomes fragile, dependent on the tremor of another's mood. Imagine holding a balloon filled with your worth, but someone else is holding the string. You can only rise when they decide to keep you tethered. That's what happens when your sense of self is borrowed. And the paradox? The more you need to be wanted, the more you fade from view. You start shrinking your truth, sanding down your edges, softening your light, so you don't burn too bright for someone else's comfort. Until one day, you wake up and can no longer remember who you were before you began to please. You've become a collage of reactions, a self built entirely out of mirrors. But here lies the secret twist of the story. The moment you stop performing, you become luminous. When you release the chase, you start to glow from within. There is something magnetic about a person at peace with themselves, something the world instinctively turns toward. Authenticity carries its own gravity. It pulls people in without trying. It quiets the noise. Still, letting go of the need to be wanted is no small thing. You cannot simply tell the child inside you, "Stop caring." That child still remembers the nights of trying too hard. They remember the averted gaze, the praise that never came, the pride that was never voiced. Healing means turning toward that child, not silencing them, but holding them. It means whispering into the wound, "You don't have to earn love anymore. You are safe now." And something begins to shift, not in a flash of revelation, but in the slow rhythm of small, quiet choices. You stop refreshing your phone for validation. You stop bending truth to avoid conflict. You start noticing the cost of peacekeeping when it's your own peace that dies. You begin to understand that the ache to be wanted was never shameful. It was human. It was love's earliest language before it learned words. Even the strongest people you know, the ones who move through the world with poise and certainty, they carry that same ancient wish to matter, to be remembered, to soften someone's life just by existing in it. The goal was never to erase that need. The goal was to understand it. Because once you see it clearly, you stop being ruled by it. You stop shrinking at silence. You stop trying to impress those who were never looking. You begin to choose differently, people who choose you back, work that nourishes instead of drains, love that feels like breathing instead of holding your breath. You start creating instead of performing. And with time, you learn that most people aren't really chasing success or romance or even happiness. They are chasing significance. They want to know that their life leaves a mark, that their presence ripples through the world in a way that outlasts the moment. To be wanted is simply to be assured that you are not invisible. But when your worth depends on being wanted, you give the proof of your existence to someone else. And people, even the kindest, are fragile keepers. They get busy, they forget, they leave. And when they do, it feels like the ground of your identity shifts beneath your feet. Wanted is warm, but fleeting. It's the sudden light of a message, the voice on the phone just when you were losing hope. Love is quieter. It doesn't announce itself. It stays. The world doesn't teach us how to wait for that kind of love. It teaches urgency. Prove yourself now. Keep them interested. Earn your place before you're replaced. So we run. We perform. We call it connection. But really, it's negotiation, trading authenticity for attention, depth for immediacy. We convince ourselves that if someone wants us enough, it will undo all the years we felt unseen. But attention can't heal what neglect created. It only distracts us from it. Briefly. Tenderly. What isn't healed gets repeated. You can see it in the endless cycles. The same partners, the same patterns, the same ache dressed in different names. It's not failure. It's repetition. The heart keeps trying to rewrite its first wound, hoping this time the story ends differently. And maybe that's what growing up truly means, realizing that no one else can rewrite it for you. You can't make the past applaud. You can't make those who looked away turn back. You can only learn to sit in the silence they left and not let it define the sound of your life anymore. That silence, heavy as it feels, is holy. Because in its stillness, something extraordinary begins. The slow return to yourself. You start to see that the love you've been chasing was never supposed to arrive from the outside first. It was meant to rise within you, like dawn breaking after years of darkness. When you begin to treat yourself as someone worth wanting, your entire world softens. You no longer beg for attention. You become attentive. You no longer perform for love. You start to embody it. And in that embodiment, you find freedom, the kind that doesn't shout or demand, but hums gently beneath your skin. Emotional maturity is not detachment. It's the ability to care without losing yourself in the caring, to love without bargaining away your own wholeness, to reach out without needing to be rescued. You still desire connection, but you no longer drown for it. That shift is subtle, but revolutionary. It's the moment your question changes from, "Will they want me?" to, "Will I remain true to myself, even if they don't?" And in that moment, something sacred returns. You begin to attract not the ones who crave your performance, but those who are soothed by your peace. They are drawn not to your mask, but to your stillness. And when two people meet from that space, love ceases to be a transaction. It becomes creation. It becomes art. Even then, the ghosts will visit. You'll feel it sometimes, scrolling through silence, walking into rooms where your presence barely registers, aching for a glance that never comes. But now, you'll know what that ache is. Not weakness, not regression, memory. It's your heart, remembering its earliest hunger, and asking softly, "Will I be safe this time?" And you will answer it yourself. Yes, you are safe now. You will breathe. You will stay. You will remind the small, trembling self within that it no longer has to earn its place. You will meet your own gaze and say, "I matter." And in that recognition, the world begins to glow differently. The sunlight feels warmer. The silence feels alive. You begin to realize that solitude is not emptiness. It is the echo of wholeness returning. Being wanted was never the highest form of love. Being whole is. Most people spend their lives trying to be seen. Very few ever learn how to see themselves. But those who do, they move through the world differently. Their happiness is not on loan. Their worth is not negotiable. Their peace is not dependent on the weather of others' moods. They speak gently. They walk softly. They know when to stay and when to leave, and neither choice threatens their belonging. They have learned that real strength is not in armor, but in softness that refuses to die in a hard world. And that's what happens when the need to be wanted dissolves. You begin to want others for who they are, not what they give you. You stop taking rejection as a verdict. You start seeing that love's capacity in others is limited by their own healing, not by your worth. That knowledge is liberation, because once you see it clearly, you stop chasing worth in other eyes. You stop confusing attention with affection. You stop mistaking longing for love. You remember you were never an afterthought. You were never an accident. You were the universe's deliberate whisper, a unique expression of its infinite need to know itself. You were born wanted, not because someone chose you, but because existence itself did. You are stardust that decided to breathe. You are the continuation of everything that ever longed to exist. To be wanted, then, is not about being liked or praised. It is about remembering that your very being is proof of desire, the universe's desire to see itself through your eyes. You do not need to earn that meaning. You are made of it. Every heartbeat, every quiet breath, every act of grace, all of it, meaning. And maybe that's what love was always trying to teach us. Not how to be chosen, but how to choose ourselves so completely that the world has no choice but to feel our presence. When you stop asking, "Do I matter to them?" and begin asking, "How can I matter to the world around me, to myself, to the moment I inhabit?" everything shifts. The story changes from survival to creation, from earning to expressing, from wanting to being. Because love, real love, was never about being found. It was about remembering you were never lost. And perhaps this is where the true film of existence begins. Not in the noise of love stories, not in the rise and fall of relationships, but in the quiet frames that most people cut out. The moments between the moments. The long pauses where nothing seems to happen, but everything inside you shifts. That's where meaning hides, in the slow movement of realization, in the still breath between longing and peace. It begins when you sit in silence long enough to hear the hum beneath your own thoughts. The hum that says, "You are here. You exist." That is enough. And maybe at first it sounds small, fragile, like a whisper against a storm. But if you keep listening, it grows. It fills the space inside your chest until you can feel it vibrating through your bones. That is the sound of your own existence, learning its worth, the sound of being independent of being wanted. The world rarely celebrates that. The world worships visibility, the loud, the certain, the chosen. It teaches us to equate meaning with attention, to confuse love with recognition. We are raised to perform, to brand our souls, to make our pain palatable and our joy marketable. And yet, the most profound things that happen to us never trend, never get witnessed. They occur in the dark: forgiveness, surrender, quiet resilience, the decision to stay kind when it would be easier to close your heart. That's the real cinema of being alive. A story told not in dialogue but in glances, in the way you reach for a glass of water, in the way you walk home after disappointment, still breathing, still open to tomorrow. Because that's what being whole means. Not being unbreakable, but learning how to hold your own fragments gently. To look at your cracks and see light leaking through them. To understand that the need to be wanted was never something to kill, but something to transform. From hunger into compassion. When you understand your own longing, you begin to understand everyone else's too. You start seeing how everyone is reaching, in their own awkward, beautiful way, for the same thing: safety in someone's gaze, warmth in someone's presence, proof that their existence touches another. And when you see that, judgment softens. Suddenly, even the people who hurt you become legible. You recognize their hunger in yours. Their silence is fear, their cruelty is protection, their distance is an old wound disguised as pride. And you stop needing to win. You stop needing to prove. You begin to forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you no longer want to carry their shadows inside you. There's a strange kind of freedom in not needing to be wanted by those who cannot see you. You realize that their blindness is not your burden to cure. You were never meant to be everyone's mirror. You were meant to be your own window, transparent, honest, letting light through. And the people who are meant to stand beside you will recognize that light. Not because you chase them, not because you convince them, but because peace has its own kind of gravity. It draws in what belongs gently, without effort. You begin to notice it in the small ways, how certain conversations feel like exhaling, how certain people make you quieter, not from fear, but from presence. How for the first time, you don't have to explain yourself to be understood. That's how you know you're near real connection. It feels like returning, not performing. But this understanding doesn't make you invincible. The ghosts still come. They visit in the half-light, in the echo of an old text you still wish had been answered, in the ache of a memory that never got closure. You'll feel them brushing past your ribs sometimes, the what-ifs, the not-enoughs, the echo of being overlooked. And when they come, don't run. Invite them in. Sit with them like old friends who never learned how to say goodbye. Because they are part of you, the versions of yourself that tried, that reached, that believed. They are not proof of your failure. They are proof of your devotion. You loved with the tools you had. You sought warmth with the map you were given. You don't need to exile those parts of you to become whole. Wholeness is not the absence of longing. It's the integration of it. It's learning to look at your own need and say, I see you. You're allowed to be here, but you don't have to drive anymore. And slowly life becomes gentler. You stop chasing closure and start creating space. You stop asking for others to complete your sentences and start writing them yourself. You realize that the only validation that truly fills you is the one that comes from living in alignment with your truth, even when it costs you admiration, even when it costs you belonging. There is a sacred loneliness that comes with authenticity. It's not empty, it's clean. It's the kind of loneliness that feels like standing at the edge of an ocean at dusk, vast, humbling, alive. It's the awareness of your own smallness and your infinite worth at the same time. In that space, love becomes quieter, but truer. You stop seeking it as proof of worth and start offering it as a form of expression. You love not because you need to be loved back, but because love has become your language of being alive. It's no longer something to gain, but something to give. And in giving, paradoxically, you receive everything. Because when you stop performing, people can finally see you. Not the projection, not the disguise. You, and the ones who stay after that, those are your people. Not because they fill your emptiness, but because they recognize your fullness. The rest will drift away, as they should. Let them. Their leaving is not a loss, but a clearing, space for truth to breathe. The more you learn to stay with yourself, the more you realize that being wanted was never the point. What you were craving was connection, and connection doesn't require performance. It requires presence. Presence? The quiet miracle of being here, fully, in this breath, in this skin, in this moment. The world around you begins to change when you inhabit it differently. The air feels lighter, the faces less threatening, the noise less loud. You begin to see beauty in the mundane, the way sunlight rests on a cracked wall, the way laughter travels through a room like a tide. You begin to understand that everything alive is, in some way, reaching to be seen. The trees, the waves, the people. And you, finally, are no longer reaching from lack, but from love. This is the transformation nobody films. There's no soundtrack for it, no applause. It happens quietly, like dawn seeping into the edges of night. But it changes everything. Because once you find peace in being unseen, you start shining in ways visibility could never offer. You begin to live not as an audition, but as art. You become the scene itself, not the actor waiting for validation, but the light, the wind, the pulse of the story moving through time. And somewhere, the child you once were looks at you with awe, because for the first time they feel what they'd been searching for all along: safety. Not in someone's arms, not in someone's eyes, but in your own. And the film fades to quiet. Not an ending, but an arrival. Because the truth was never that you had to be wanted to matter. The truth was that you were wanted all along by life itself.